Right, well, thank you. So this is the panel discussion moment, and I'm going to seed the discussion with a question of my own. My concern about all these wonderful events is that we're often preaching to the choir. We nod hard and we go, yes, something must be done. But the challenge for me, which I'd like to invite fellow panel members to consider for a moment and then respond to, is how do we get it out of our furious agreement and into the minds of the people that we work with who can help us to make the difference that we crave. So I'm sure since you've been on it for a few weeks now, Becky, you might have a few ideas about how we can spread the love.
So I think one thing that I've actually found very interesting is, having done a few discovery projects before, I found that actually the transport data community has been incredibly open, that people are very willing to give their time, that they're very willing to meet with us, speak with us and share their views. So I think there's something there around a willingness to collaborate, to work together, that can kind of be built on. So actually it's potentially around being very focused, making sure that we're targeting conversations and topics around things where we can really drive momentum as a group, that I think will mean that actually we're kind of set up for success in making sure that we can start to make changes in this area.
Okay, so my two pence for that is to take the point about those in the room. I think we need to widen who's in the rooms for these things, and I think they don't necessarily need to be rooms. So whilst we all, from a networking side, coming together, that's really useful learning from each other. What I think, or what I feel, certainly from feedback from others, is that we need to move to a place where it's a much more practical, hands-on, tangible thing, and it isn't just some people telling others what to do. It's actually more collectively getting involved and engaged, and actually really with that hands-on stuff and making that change happen. So that would be my contribution.
So we're definitely getting more people in the room, but I do think that maybe we should be doing a little bit more to be more rigorous in that process of engagement, of ensuring consistency. Can I just ask how many people here are here for the first time, your first time at a Transport Data Initiative? Raise your hand high. What would you say that is? About 25%, 30% maybe? Yeah? So a lot of fresh faces here. But that also tells me that there's faces who've been before who are not here today. And also from having been engaged in discussions around the table, I know that the reason for that is that many people in local authority have problems with travel budgets. So, you know, those guys who are on the web are probably the ones who are further away, but hopefully still engaged. But I think, you know, the whole idea of maintaining that consistency of engagement is something that we should be working towards. I'm sure David would welcome, I don't know whether we've got mechanisms to gather input from the floor on how we can do some of these things, but I would think this would be something that the policy group will be looking at when we meet soon, as to how we can, you know, maintain some of the momentum and increase it and push it out. So it's a good question, Nick. What's your answer?
I'll tell you in a moment. Graham.
Hi, thanks. I think the key point for me today, and that's one which Becky's been reiterating, is the importance which the department sees that local authorities have in the value of the data. And that is a key message about the discovery. That the government really is concerned and really interested in discovering what local authorities hold, what the value of that is, but for a reason, to actually make our transport system better. And I think the key points for me to pick up from today is actually there's an awful lot of good stuff going on, but how do we actually coordinate that? Where's the leadership in that? And what's the role of government actually to help facilitate that delivery? So I think the discovery will be very much focused on where is the value of data, particularly to defining what value is both to the user, both if there's a commercial aspect to that, which is a real challenge, as Becky's pointed out, but actually in making operations better, actually providing better transport to the end user. How do we create that value chain? So where are the priorities of data for us? How do we actually create leadership in that? And what's the role of government in actually helping that? And I think the more we discuss these open opportunities, I think the better it is for us. And I think this discovery, which we're leading a moment from Mill Highlands, is a real opportunity for you to engage with us and actually tell us what you actually need, what you actually think their value is, from both your own opportunities, from your own expectations, but also from what you expect from us as a DT to help you do that?
Of course, I do have part of the answer, but only part of the answer, and it's not my original idea. It actually comes much more from something that Teresa brainstormed and thought up before Christmas. And she happened to ask me to check some notes that she'd made recently, and I had a look through them. I said, but there's an amazing idea in there. When I was in the department working with Graham, we shared a wonderful boss, Anthony Ferguson, who is head of traffic and technology, who used to say, I've just heard about this. I wish I'd known it was going on because these people over here are doing this, and Transport Systems Catapult is doing that, and Innovate UK is doing that, and we haven't got a clear view across the entire landscape. That's also a problem with transport data itself. We can't see end to end across the whole landscape, but it also applies to the initiatives. And the idea that Teresa came up with was a central resource that could manifest itself through multi-channel. It could be part of it could manifest itself online, but it could also be a series of conferences. It could be a series of meetups, anything and everything, in order to ensure that we have clear visibility of who is doing what, how far they've got, what their lessons learned are, and at the same time a forum in which people could be introduced to each other and collaborate and work together. Because that way we'd have a much better view of where we've actually got to, and I don't think we've got that at the moment. So we are kind of in the very early stages of brainstorming this into life, and we hope to launch it in the summer as a resource that people can then pick up and run with and develop into something much bigger. But I think that could potentially help us.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Can I put your mind at rest? We are doing it.
We didn't know.
So Graham and myself and Callum and a few others, we've sort of recognised that need for some of the organisations like DFT, Innovate UK, the IET. There's a group of about 15 of us so far that are all starting to come together and work out how we can collaborate a little bit more to find out what we're all doing, to make sure that we don't all come to you guys asking the same questions again and again, and that we can make those opportunities bigger. So it's early days, and I'm happy to keep you guys updated or get you involved. So of course you can. Always welcome. But it's... Hello? Oh, there you go. So we can start collaborating more and more. So that's the great news.
Very useful.
Thank you. Peter Lee from British Standards Institution. We've just set up a portal. It's got working group spaces, and we have a group for cities called the One Cities Group. Some of the people here have been to some of the British Standards Institution IoT community group. So there's an online portal. We are focused on transport data for a group of cities at the moment, and we've only got, I'd say, about 7 cities in there at the moment, but we're putting out the opportunity for the DFT, Transport Systems Catapult. It's Innovate UK funded at the moment. So perhaps via this group we can share information about the portal. We're running working groups, physical meetups, as well as online discussions. At the moment we've separated it so that we can have cities discussing around their challenges on their own, but we've got outside of the working groups the suppliers who are keen to address the challenges set by cities. And underpinning all of this is about data interoperability. There is a British standard called Hypercat, which some cities are using, and the One Transport platform is using. So we're helping to try to make all of this data discoverable and usable to accelerate adoption of integrated data. So a little plug. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any other questions from my panel?
Hi there, Alec Beale from Here Technologies. A question for you, Teresa, about your Greenwave project. You've obviously got the system architecture now in place to push traffic light timings to third parties. What's the next, there's 2 parts really, what's the next step beyond benefiting Amy? And what do you see as the big roadblock for making that next step?
Andy Raff might jump in a little bit on this. In the context of the Innovate UK project as it exists at the moment, it really is trying to identify a proof of concept and actually testing that hypothesis. Is there actually value in that? We think there is, and are testing it with Amy, who can theoretically, if there is that case, benefit from that, financially at least, is at least identifying and improving that concept. I guess one of the challenges which, as a result of the kind of effort that's been required to get the data bits together, so that's clearly a challenge. Right now, we haven't actually done the driver and testing bit, so we can think back on that probably June time when we've actually done that. The theory is that by supporting the drivers in a NIC and supporting and encouraging their kind of behavioural change, provided they get provided the data actually comes through to the app in a timely fashion, they can actually act on that. Then the theory is that by supporting them and using, this is still up for exploration, but using the savings in terms of fuel cost to help reward potentially or kind of gamify that process. That aspect of tying in the driver behaviour by having that information and making a better decision is yet to be tested in that environment. So the apps are in the box at the moment, and they'll be with the drivers from next week. So that's very much work in progress. So we've still got to test that hypothesis. I guess the wider concept is if we prove that does work to some degree, then I think it helps to identify an opportunity to utilise better what we have to save. So the money is really ultimately going to be a change maker. So if that's valuable enough for other fleets, whether they be as a supplier or as an authority fleet, or potentially not even to do with council operations, but actually wider fleets, if that can work. The Chinese airport would be outside a city boundary at the moment, or a local authority boundary at the moment, or we're dealing with, theoretically at least, one system within one environment and working with that. There's no reason why, at a data and technology level, I guess if you use discrete data, there's theoretically no reason why it couldn't work wider than that. But we've actually got to test that concept in a kind of closed environment. And in this particular case, because of the slightly unusual but rare occurrence of the PFI, it's actually going to benefit from this directly, rather than what could be the case in other instances where you don't have the PFI aspect, is that those benefits can be seen more directly to the local authorities or indeed the kind of private sector. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, kind of. The whole PFI thing is a mystery to me, to be honest. I wasn't really even aware of that situation.
Okay, so, so it's a 25-year complete service offering deal for highways maintenance for the Amy. There is about 5 of them, I think, across the country. One for the Isle of Wight, one for the Borough of Hounslow, Sheffield, Birmingham, and another, where the council has basically set up the PFI as a contract to run the whole of the highways maintenance operation.
So that includes the Scoot data output?
We've got a further response from Graham.
All right.
Just very quickly, because I see Paul putting his hand up. The department is funding several trials of what we call signal phasing and timing, and we have several other local authorities who are obviously interested, primarily through the A22. So we set up a fantastic group called, would you believe, Spatula, which is probably the worst acronym in the world, but it is looking to actually evaluate what the importance to both the user and to the road network operator that single phasing timing can provide. To bring the information together to try and create some sort of common evaluation framework and actually bring together all the operators, including the most manufacturing side, the user side, and the local authorities to actually find a common evaluation framework.
Yeah, I think there was actually a paper produced by the Transport Technology Forum maybe about a year or two back now, looking at signal phase and timing, and also glosser. I mean, my understanding of the way you've implemented this is you're actually not changing the signal phase and timing, you're just providing the information to the drivers. So you're using it as a behavioural change.
Correct.
Whereas the signal phase and timing, I think, is where you're actually changing the signal phases and timings to get the flow that way.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes and no.
So
It could just be an information stream, but in Newcastle, for instance, it is a priority to buses.
Yeah.
Some say it's a priority to freight.
Yeah.
But with others, it is just an information about when time to green.
Yeah. So I think the real challenge actually is when you start trying to do this in a city where you've got, one part of the city maintained, controlled from one UTMC and another system elsewhere or whatever.
I think in summary it's very much a TDI style of project in that it is about showing what one can do with data, and our focus is on the environment today, so it's highly relevant. What I would urge everyone who's involved with it to consider is that we don't want another app. What we ultimately want is the ability for all the existing panoply of app providers to have an API that they can easily tap into this information. What we found this morning is one of the most difficult things is actually getting all the data and getting it all to work in the first place. And that, therefore, is a blocker for anyone from Google Maps to any of the other journey planning organisations, Citymapper, etc., because they can't actually easily assemble this into their offerings. But if we can make that happen, I would suggest then we've got a really, really good way forward. And yeah, it's behavioural change and we don't know the extent to which, but until we have a mass market trial where people actually have the opportunity to use this stuff, we really won't know the extent to which we can motivate people to do this. Any more questions? Excellent.
Hi, I'm Paul Darlow from Portsmouth City Council, and we are one of the councils that have got a PFI. So just leading on really from the finance point and the PFI, that's actually very relevant because a lot of councils, their scoop loops will fall into disrepair and they have to find the cash to repair them, whereas you're absolutely correct under the PFI, if we're identified as a fault, they have to go out, COLAS go out and actually fix that. But actually moving forward with new technology to collect new data and new sensors that isn't in the PFI, that does pose a question. There is loads of money around out there, capital money from the DFT, to do trials to buy new kit, to get some on street and some capital purchase, but the ongoing revenue to repair that stuff when it breaks, to modernise it, keep it up to date, there's a big question there with cash-strapped authorities about how you find that ongoing revenue, and that probably comes back from the value of the data and what you can do with it and whether that actually generates into pound signs that you can actually feed in to keep maintaining that and expanding that network of sensors. So question really about what your thoughts are.
Okay. So you're saying that the position, that the problem there is with the PFI arrangements. Is there a scenario where other fleets and so on could benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's the data has.
NHS fleets for one.
Yeah, I mean the data has value, and if other people are prepared to pay for that, that generates an income stream which can then be used to maintain your sensors, your data collection. Yeah. But at the moment, there seems to be give it all out for free. But what happens? You do it after a year, half the sensors are broken, don't work anymore. And we've got traffic counters that have been out there 3 or 4 years. The loops are broken. You now start talking tens, 50,000 pounds to actually start cutting open a tarmac to replace those loops. That's a cost that is really difficult to bear on a year-to-year budget.
I think you probably find that some of the councils who haven't got those PFI arrangements will be saying exactly the same.
But it's moving forward with the new technology, really.
And certainly with a lot of the new technology that is wireless-based, for example, Bluetooth sensors and so on for measuring journey times and things like that. I mean, at least that is a lot cheaper and easier to deploy. But there's still a cost involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that, my personal view anyways, I'm not sure that there is that we should be looking at one source of data to provide all this stuff. Yeah, of course there's challenges with loops and maintaining them. There is, of course, this excitement around using new technologies and finding easy ways to do this. Personally, I think it's probably more practical, certainly, in certainly in the foreseeable future, to actually find a way to filter the data from various sources and actually still to build that local authority resource as the authority to, whether it's through loops or other technologies that are in place, but fundamentally as a local authority, as a public owner of that facility and support to enable traffic to move around. I think we need to empower a lot more and by in turn getting the money in to do that, but we need to empower the value of that public asset as a data source and raise that game so that we're not reliant on, for example, the likes of Google and Apple. We repeat that, but conceptually, I think we've given away power for far too long that other people will solve our transport and technology solutions. They're helpful, they're part of the picture, but we need to reweight the balance and actually do what we can to put the, I guess, responsibility, but maybe that's not quite the right word, but to empower local authorities to actually be that resource of data for their area that's also consistent and usable if you're travelling across authority networks to that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think part of the problem that local authorities have had is that, you know, you're responsible for your area, and yet the people who stand to gain financially are the fleets that go across all the areas. And so, you know, it's this fragmentation of the responsibility and of the funding and so on, you know, that causes that sort of fracture in the value chain. And I think this is perhaps where DFT could have a role in perhaps helping the local authorities to work together, to collaborate, to build that business model, you know, whereby that local authority data can be monetised, you know, to those national organisations who have a lot of, you know, clearly as we've seen from the own model, you know, I mean the number of fleet organisations there are in the country that are all doing their own thing. Most of them are getting their own apps developed, their own apps to, you know, encourage their own drivers to drive more fuel efficiently and things like this. But, you know, everyone is doing their own thing, just as the local authorities are fragmented, so are the fleet organisations are often competing, not just fragmented, but competing. So, you know, if you could, you know, bring, you know, get that collaboration amongst local authorities, maybe brokered by the DFT, you know, to bring that together to create that sort of business model that could work on a national level, that could be part of the answer.
Yes, and I think another part of the answer is what we are hearing increasingly, not just in transport, but all over government, which is the contention between capital budgets and expenditure budgets, because it just means we're going to have this over and over again, and it's well above the pay grade of everyone probably in the Department of Transport to fix that. I'm not a treasury economist, but to me, having run several businesses, I really don't care. If I've got cash, I don't care whether it's cash that I could use for capital or cash that I could use to run the business and pay the wages, quite frankly. So I find the distinction really, really bizarre, and I think it's predicated on some mysterious idea that capital budgets produce future revenue. Not sure they really do. There's big debates at the moment about productivity and things like that, and how you measure those things. I think it's all a bit spurious. And I think we could be part of a collective voice that says, for heaven's sake, you know, you're spending loads of money on sticking this stuff in, but then you're not providing any money to repair it. That is nonsense. Why spend the money in the first place? You're not going to get the value out at the end of the day. You have to be able to sustain things, and any government business case requires you to prove that you sustain things, so why aren't we doing it?
Thanks, I agree with most of the comments being made here from the panel. I think one of the interesting things from my perspective is how we go back to Teresa's point, is how we actually value change and actually look at how the partnerships we're funding currently through the CISS projects can actually create a new business model for local authorities to collect and work with data to actually upgrade the systems. But I think also there is a really interesting point about actually maintaining the assets and the work which Gareth did for us, which has never quite seen the light of day, which for no other reason than I haven't released it yet,
So when are you going to go?
Which was a major review we did of ITS 2 years ago for local authorities, which actually got about 100 respondents, I think, going on in total. And I think the key thing which came back from local authorities was actually maintaining the asset rather than actually looking forward to what the future capabilities can be. And I think there is a real challenge for government to actually think about what does maintenance mean to actually create better networks, because Andrew, Mr. Radford, how many loops did you say you had operational, non-operational when you talk about Westminster? There's
about 1,000 loops, about half of them.
So you're actually reversing, you're actually losing your scoop capability, and you're actually going back to fixed islands and different plans. So we're actually losing a lot of operational benefits from that, and I think that is an issue which we can actually get some consideration for. And I think we probably are doing through something called the Transport Technology Forum. But I also take a point about collaboration, how we actually make local authorities or consider how local authorities can work together in the brokership. And I think these sort of very interesting challenges which will probably come out of the local data discovery.
Okay, great. Now, lunch is always attractive at these events, and it is really a good opportunity to network. So I'm going to take one more question, and then we'll go for lunch.
Thank you. I've got a question about the Green Wave project. My understanding is that it will improve traffic flow. It will let drivers know when lights are going to change so they can adjust speed accordingly. And if there's certain blocks on the road, they'll maybe have different routes to take to improve flow, thus reducing congestion and the emissions for that way. But if I'm correct, there's still the same number of cars on the road. There's more congestion at other points because some points are flowing. So is it a zero-sum game?
Good question. There's this slight risk that I ran by showing the BBC clip and then talking about the Green Wave project, I've had a separate discussion actually with someone else around this, is that there was a potential to confuse you slightly, which I have done. It was great that the BBC programme I looked at Green Wave. What they were talking about in that was in the context of the one-day programme they were doing in Kinteith. They were actually looking at how they can change the priority and change the timings of the traffic signals from central source for a particular area. And I'm sure others will chip in on that conversation. In terms of actually the Innovate UK project that Birmingham were involved with, it's quite specific around actually getting information about traffic signals into the cabs of the AV fleet vehicle drivers as they go around doing their maintenance activities. So they're not planning a route. We had to be very clear in that instance that they're not planning their routes via sat-nav. They're just going from job to job. So it had, whatever we came up with, had to be able to work on the fly with them in the vehicle as they go. So in the case, very specific case of the Green Wave Innovation Project, the Innovate UK project, it's a very, very specific focus on having traffic signal information in the cab ready to adjust to wherever they are at a particular time.
And is
so
it
there's a slightly different, but both are Green Wave in the big sense, but in the context of that particular research project, that we're only looking at that area. So I'm probably going to hand over, I suspect, from others. Graham possibly might have a comment on your wider point, which is about how we actually, is it worth doing at all, if you like, if we're still going to have traffic and congestion on the roads.
just a quick follow-up? If I've got a feed telling me the traffic lights are going to change in 15 seconds, I'm going to drive faster, not slower. Is there any evidence to suggest drivers will actually drive slower? Those who are not being commercially monitored by the employer.
So the context in this particular project, I think Andy just briefly showed you, Sandy might answer this.
Sorry.
Is that because of the AE, because of the project with AE, they can get financial benefit. The theory is they get financial benefit out of this by reducing fuel emissions. That is why the behaviour of the gamification part is a theoretical part of this programme to test within a controlled environment. So it isn't just anyone driving around with an app. There's a reason why they're out at work, they're doing this stuff. They can at least save their company money and thereby one of the rewards that they get back as a result of that
So we're not telling anyone to speed up. That's not what the app does. the app provides them speed advice, and the app only provides them speed advice, slow down. It only tells them what colour the traffic light's going to be on when they're stopped. When they're moving, it provides them information about what speed to slow down to hit the traffic lights. Does it work? It's one part of the solution, and what we've seen from other things we've done, like average speed cameras, is if you can smooth out the traffic flow, you do get a little bit of a congestion benefit from that, and that's what we're trying to test with this.
Thank you, that's a really useful clarification. As we break for lunch, I have a question from Walter. Could anyone who is from a local authority in this audience please raise their hand? Could you keep your hand raised if you know assuredly that your local authority is doing anything about air quality in your area? Measuring air quality, yeah. Okay, that's quite encouraging. Let us hope that we are representative of the nation, and that at least that proportion, and possibly more, is doing something nationally. On that note, I shall declare lunchtime.